Notes from the 2013 and 2014 Berkshire Hathaway meetings. On book value, Warren said, "If an insurance company adds lots of new customers, it doesn't add a penny to book value. That's why we're willing to buy at 120% of book value. But book value is useful as a tracking device, so we do look at it. There are companies we should have bought 30 or 40 years ago that looked higher priced then, but we now realize that paying up for an extraordinary business is not a mistake." Question: What's your 2-minute monologue explaining the business of Berkshire Hathaway and its merits as a long-term investment for future decades? Answer: We've always tried to stay sane, and other people, a lot of them like to go crazy. That's a comparative advantage, said Charlie Munger. Number 2, treat others like we'd want to be treated if we were being purchased. That is, to not interfere. Question: How do you determine the fair value for a stock? Answer: We usually feel we're paying too much. Isn't that right, Charlie? Then Charlie nods yes. But we find the business so compelling and the management or our associates so compelling that we gag and we get there on the price. But there is no perfect mathematical formula. Looking back, when we bought wonderful businesses that turned out to continue to be wonderful, we could have paid significantly more money and they still would have been great business decisions. But you never know 100% for sure, so it isn't as precise as you might think. Generally speaking, if you get a chance to buy a wonderful business, and by that I mean one that has economic characteristics that lead you to believe with a high degree of certainty that they will be earning unusual returns on capital over time, unusually high, and better yet, if they get the chance to employ more capital at high rates of return, that's the best of all businesses. And you probably should stretch a little on price. We almost didn't buy See's Candy because it was 5% over what I wanted, but not buying it would have been a huge mistake. And great businesses, you're not going to find lots of them, and you're not going to get the opportunity to buy them, although you do in the market. The stock market will offer you opportunities for profit percentage-wise that you'll never see in terms of negotiated purchases of businesses. In a negotiated purchase of a business, you're almost always dealing with someone that has the option of either selling or not selling and can sort of pick the time when they decide to sell and all that sort of thing. In stock markets, it's an auction market. Crazy things can happen. You can have some technological blip that will cause a flash crash or something, and the world really hasn't changed at all, but all kinds of selling mechanisms are tripped off and that sort of thing. So you will see opportunities in the stock market that you'll never really get in the business market. But we really like buying businesses to hold and keep. When you have a lot of cash coming in and you're going to continue to have cash coming in, you really want to deploy it in great businesses that you can own forever, said Warren. Charlie said, "We're sort of in a different mode now, and that has a great lesson in that if we had kept our earlier modes, if we had never learned, we wouldn't have done very well. The game of life is everlasting learning, at least if you want to win." Notes from the 2014 Berkshire Hathaway meeting. Our cost of capital is what could be produced by our second best idea, and then our best idea has to exceed that. Most don't know what their cost of capital really is. The real test over time is whether the capital we retain produces more than $1 of market value as we go along. Charlie said, "By the standards of the rest of the world, we overtrust, and so far our results have been way better because we carefully selected people because they were going to be overtrusted, and it's worked very well for us. Our system deserved trust." Buying See's Candy taught us the power of brands and led to buying Coke. Its main contribution was to ignorance removal. Other people who used the conglomerate model were hell-bent to buy something or other quite regularly, and we don't feel any compulsion to buy. We're willing to just sit until something makes sense. We're quite different. We're a lot more like the Mellon brothers than Gulf and Western. The way to get a good spouse or partner is to deserve one. To get a good partner, you deserve a good partner. It's the old-fashioned way of getting ahead, and the interesting thing about it is it still works in this modern times. Nothing changes. If you just behave yourself correctly, it's amazing how well it works, said Charlie. You can't skirt the fact that they're very good at removing unnecessary costs, and I do not consider that in any way immoral or wrong. I think removing unnecessary costs is a service to civilization, and I think it should be done with some mercy or sensitivity. I don't think it's good for our system to have a lot of make work and what have you, said Charlie.